What's up? How we doing, everybody? Welcome in to a great show. Little Fuzzy, what's going on? What are we doing? We're going to send this back into a quick break and figure this out. Wait 1 second. This is not right. This is not what we need. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Welcome in, everybody. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We had a little lighting issue. Ralph's not here. Ralph just got off. He just got off of work. He just shot me the text. So he's not here. But hey, we're going to rock and roll anyways. Welcome in. Thanks so much. A couple things I want to shout out before we get started here. I'm running the show solo tonight. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being a part of Swarm Talk. If you're a Georgia Tech fan, we appreciate you so much tuning in on a fantastic Thursday evening. And folks, really, if we're being honest with ourselves, man, the bye week went by pretty fast, but not fast enough. So that being said, I want to welcome everyone into the show tonight. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening or watching after the fact, that's completely fine. Maybe you catch us on your morning drive on Fridays. Make sure to tune in every single Sunday and Thursday nights. That's 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, as we talk Georgia Tech. Real quick, presenting sponsor of the show, Section 103. Make sure to use that's code Crowded Booth for 10% off your first order. Fantastic stuff. I will tell you as well, I have been really enjoying the polos that I have been wearing for games and wearing on the show a couple times. I'm going to shout them out. They're not quite a sponsor yet. We're working on getting that, but it's Bald Head Blues out of South Carolina. Man, it's some of the best golf polos that we've got out on the market. That being said, we're going to rock and roll. We're going to take some questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you tune in. Make sure you're locked in. And make sure you're not a casual as we get ready to talk. We're going to talk a lot of different things tonight. Really dove into this matchup and really went into kind of depth and looking at some of the numbers. And if the spread is still 4.5 points, which is where I believe it sits right now, this is a close one. Like, this is a really, really close one when we talk about what these two teams are capable of doing, the inconsistencies that both teams have shown up until this point. Both teams sit at 3-3. But if you're just joining for the first time and you're saying, what is this? Well, I'll tell you right now, this is a game that is a must win for both teams if they want to get to bowl eligibility. Now, we're obviously taking more of the Georgia Tech side of things in this, but it's going to be very interesting. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's rock and roll. Let's talk about first the Georgia Tech defense against Boston College's offense. Now, this is where I want to go first with this. We roll into this game. And look, there's a mixed feelings. There's a lot of different opinions out there about, how Georgia Tech performed against Miami 2 weeks ago. There's a lot of different takes out there. And listen, I understand it. I get it. Bottom line, Tech won the game. Whether you think they're a good team or not, or it was a good performance, it just doesn't matter. It's water under the bridge at this point. I've put my thoughts out there. A lot of you have put your thoughts out there as well. And it's kind of where we sit with this in the sense of, let's just move on. You get back home, you get to a game that I think is a winnable football game, a game that I think you can do a lot of things to give you confidence for the back half of the season. They get out of the bye week, and obviously that's something that you want to be able to do, set yourself up, get healthy. We mentioned Chase Lane coming back in this ball game. That's going to be very huge for what this team wants to do. That being said, when you take a look at this Boston College offense, let's get a couple stats, a couple of numeros, a couple of, however you say the word number in Spanish, whatever it is. Boston College is scoring on average 27.7 points per season. It's got, or on the season, per game on the season. What? 27.7 points on the season per game. That's going to get for the 78th best mark in the country. Obviously, where a lot of people want to sit is Thomas Castellanos. And look, this is a kid that I've been very, very, very impressed with in what he's been able to do. Coach Castellanos, going back to arguably Boston College's near upset against Florida State, he posted a remarkable 305 yards, has accrued 1,100 yards passing, and has a nice 10-5 touchdown to interception ratio on the year. The big part is that he's also mobile. He has thrown for over 1,000. He has run for 500. He is leading the team in rushing. But that's not all. Boston College does have a really good running game. They're averaging just a shade under 200 yards per game at 189. That's good for 30th in the country. So I will tell you this. Something's going to have to. We're going to get the numbers out of the way, then I'll give my thoughts. Let's get in here. Georgia Tech ranks 128th nationally, at the bottom of the barrel, allowing an average of 214.3 yards per game on the ground. What does this tell me? It tells me that something's going to have to change in the way these two teams are playing. Either Boston College is going to come in and they're going to establish the run early, or we're going to see this Boston College or this Georgia Tech team do something that they really haven't done yet this season, and it's limit a team on the ground. They did that against Wake Forest. The two ACC wins they have, they've been okay defensively. I would say Wake Forest, they were good. Miami, they were really opportunistic, and I wouldn't say that they necessarily shut Miami down, but they were opportunistic, took advantage of those mistakes. So coming into this game, Tech struggles with mobile quarterbacks when we look. I mean, you go back to what Jackson Dart was able to do. Do I think Thomas Castellanos is Jackson Dart? No, not in the least bit. That being said, I do believe that we're looking at something here where Boston College is really comfortable with Castellanos. I was able to listen and watch their press conferences all of this week, and they're entering, coming off a bye week, a situation where their fan base, their coaches, their staff are starting to feel really comfortable because now you're in a situation where Castellanos is the guy. Castellanos is comfortable in what he's running, and the things that he wants to run during the bye week, they were able to install. Jonesy, yes, he is. I believe he's from Thomasville, Georgia. Then Thomas Castellanos, a guy that, he's a great athlete. He's a great athlete, and he's been very, very good for this Boston College team. He's kept them in a lot of games. Obviously, like we talked about that Florida State game as well. I think when you look at this game and you look at Boston College's schedule, you look at what they've been able to do. Look, they've been able to put up some really, really good numbers. And I was seeing some stuff on social media about how, well, you look at the opponents they've played. And once again, it just comes from, I say this, I'm not saying Boston College is going to go in here and run all over Georgia Tech. I'm also not saying Georgia Tech's going to come in and stop the run. I think that's going to be a big key to the game, and we'll talk about keys to the game later on in the show. What I do think here is that you're going to have a situation where Georgia Tech is going to have to make Castellanos uncomfortable. You're going to have to generate pressure like you did in that Wake Forest game. Can you do that consistently? Make sure to notch that word consistently in your notebook if you're keeping notes tonight, because that's something that is going to come up very often in tonight's show. Castellanos has been really, really good on the run this year. He's been good under pressure, and the guy, I think, is just a bona fide playmaker. When you see what he's able to do, it hurts Georgia Tech in the sense of this guy kind of thrives in chaos. So you got to make him uncomfortable. You got to force him. You have to be opportunistic. That's something that Georgia Tech defense did a really good job of. I think in this game, it's going to be very interesting to see. And Dr. Bob hit right here. Whichever one of these groups, Dr. Bob, you don't even have the show script, and you're killing it down there in the comments section. Dr. Bob says this right here. I've got it on my show script right here. Did the defense or the offense of Boston College, that Georgia Tech defense, offense college, who worked out what they need to work out the most? And who comes in and it responds well, like Dr. Bob said, and is able to establish that tone early on? I think that Georgia Tech comes into this matchup needing to stop the run. And going back to where I was going with that point of, look, seeing a lot of people, some people on social media, not a lot of people, I don't want to group it into that, seeing some conversation in the Discord about this. If you're not a part of the Discord and you want to, join down the link below, whether you're listening or watching live or after the fact here on YouTube. They say, well, look at who Boston College has played. Like, look who they've done it against. They had a really, really good game against Army. But look, it was a nasty weather game. as much as you want to hype up what Georgia Tech did 2 weeks ago, you also have to give credit where credit is due when other teams do the same thing and they win ugly. And that's what Georgia Tech has done in a lot of their wins over the past couple of seasons. So Boston College has shown a knack to respond well and win in ugly fashion, win in ugly games, and win games that are not your traditional football games. And when you're throwing the ball, I mean, Castellanos, I believe, threw 9 passes last week against Army. So, or last a couple weeks ago. So, all this being said is you can't roll into this game where and yeah, Ralph, there you are, dude. I mean, I need you in the background of the show here. We just bombed the opening, but that's fine. This being said, Castellanos brings a dynamic that you can't just overlook and think, well, yeah, it's Boston College. They're not very good, that you're just going to get away with. This team can beat you. And this team, I think that it's going to be a very good game. And I think this team has a chance to beat you with a playmaker at quarterback. That being said, you can't walk into this thinking, well, yeah, you can't walk in it with gold colored glasses. You just can't do that because as much as you say, well, look who they've played, look at the lack of teams that they've really played. Okay, well, what about 3 weeks ago when you lost to Bowling Green? Like that you can't have that both ways. You can't point out another team's shortcomings but not recognize your own. And so we need to also see what Georgia Tech is able to respond. Do they come out of this bye week defensively, especially in the run defense? Do they come out of this with reckless abandon? Do they come out of this with an aggressive, nature? Do they come out of this thinking we've got to play up to our standard of what we believe we can play up to so we can get to postseason football? If they do that, they can win this football game, and I think they could win it very nicely. I'm going to get to the other side of the ball. But this right here is very important for me because, we talked, and Paul Moala said this after the Bowling Green game, the preparedness of this team, the preparedness of this group. You can't – I will be very concerned if Boston College comes in there and just dominates you on the ground and the preparedness and all those different types of things, because it's going to be either one or two things. There's not going to be a middle ground to this. It's either you got out executed, so you didn't have the right guys and your guys didn't perform, or you weren't ready. It's either on the coaches or on the players. As much as we like to, talk about different things and do these things, that's where I sit in this conversation of this defense has to come out with a reckless abandonment. They've got to come out with an aggressiveness of being able to do a lot of different things well. I mean, they've got to do the small things well in order to be effective. And so I think that Georgia Tech's defense has a chance to. Now, like I said, buck these trends. You rank 128th nationally in run defense, giving up an average of 214. They're in the top 30. They are number 30 in the country in running the football. So it's something they're going to want to do. It shouldn't be a surprise when they come in there and try to do it. And that's where I kind of sit with this. It's not being hypercritical. This is just the truth of the matter. If this team comes out and gets the ball run down their throats, I will be concerned, as we all should be, in the sense of, is the team not prepared, or I'd just be concerned in general. Like I would be concerned on both ends of the spectrum. You're either not prepared or the message is not getting through. That would be the two things. Now, if they do respond, and which is another case, and we'll take a look at that. If they do respond, then the message got through. The bye week was fantastic. And Ralph, I just got your text message. Yeah, go ahead and hop in. We're not even halfway through the show right now. That will be very, very interesting to see. We're starring some questions in here and some comments we'll get to. Ralph's going to be joining here in a second. So that's the Georgia Tech defense against this Boston College offense. Now we go and we talk now about the Georgia Tech offense against this Boston College defense. Guys, the biggest thing coming into this is the improvement week to week of what Boston College has been able to do. Now, once again, you might say, Bryce, it wasn't against formidable opponents. I would tell you that should not matter. This game, you cannot look at the past schedule, because if you're going to look at the past schedule of what Boston College has been able to do, you also have to look at your own past schedule and the inconsistencies that you have. I think these are two teams that are actually fairly even. I think that they are very similar in the fact that they're kind of inconsistent on a week-to-week basis. So I think it's going to be, very interesting as well to kind of see what those things go and what those things do. Here's a couple numbers for you. The last two games, we talk about the uh, the accumulation of confidence that this Boston College defense has been able to do. The last two games, they have held their opponents to 6 of 22 on third downs. Um, you have to be able to sustain drives. That's something that Brent Key talked about in his press conference this week was, look, it's going to be something that we have to sustain drives offensively to go get points. I think that it's nice to hit on explosive plays after the lack of those that we've seen from this offense. But every now and then, this team is going to have that 7, 8, 9 play, you know, drive that goes 60, 70, 75 yards and really tires out and wears down a defense. If they can do that in this game, I think they can win the football game. Let's talk a little bit more about Boston College's defense. The pass defense is actually pretty solid for the Eagles. They are 44th, but the rush defense for both teams is really bad. Georgia Tech is near the bottom of the barrel. Boston College is just inside that top 100. They are 97th in the country. But here's something that's very interesting. While the pass defense is really, really good, they've only had 10 sacks this year. So what does that tell me? If this offensive line can continue to trend in the right direction, can continue to do a lot of things that they need to do, you're going to have time to be able to deliver the ball to the weapons. Boston College, his head coach, was able to talk about a lot of these things in the sense of they don't have they were talking about the receiver cornerback matchup. And he mentioned the fact this is not a big receiver group in terms of size. And obviously, when you look at what Boston College has played, Florida State, that's what you're measuring it against, a really big receiver room. That being said, I do think that, and I'm trying to start the comments. Ralph really needs you in here to start the comments so we can get to these. That being said, you're going to have Malik Rutherford. You're going to have Chase Lane back. You're going to have, obviously, Eric Singleton. Tech's got a lot of burners. They got a lot of talent in this room, good route runners, solid possession guys. They're going to have to win those one-on-one matchups to be able to do that. And I think that they've done a good job this season of showcasing that. The Boston College defense is conceding an average of 31.7 points per game. That's 110th in the country. So it's two defenses that have not been really, really solid or consistent this season. They've had in different areas what they've been good at, and that's most likely the pass defense. The rush defense, like I said, ranks 97th, allowing 162.7 yards per game. This is where I think, Georgia Tech has improved, and it's something I wanted to go see. We answered in the Mailbag podcast this past week. I want to see if Buster Faulkner has gotten better or improved, essentially in the sense of being able to call a game within being able to, do certain things and have success with the ebbs and flows of a football game. You can draw out what you want to do. You're going to have a script. Every single coach has a script of what they want to do. Let's say the first 2-3 drives or whatever. After that, being able to see what's worked and being able to not see what has worked or see what has not worked, you should be able to game plan off of that against this team, especially at home. And that's been something that I really haven't seen a very good job of. Making those adjustments on the fly and making those adjustments as you see fit with the folks upstairs, the analyst, and all these guys, that their job is to chart these plays and give a game plan, especially at halftime, bringing that to Buster Faulkner and say, hey, this scheme right here is working, or this formation, we're killing him in this. We can run different things out of this. That is something for me that I have to see if this offense is going to take a stand, if they're going to take a next step in what they have to do. Because if the defense just plays average the rest of the way, but this offense can take another step, I should say, that is going to unlock a lot of things. And that's going to make me feel more comfortable about where this offense is going to go. So all of these things that I'm sitting here saying, this is another key for as well. Georgia Tech is really relying on the passing offense to generate a lot of yards. It's something that a lot of fans are excited to see. It's something that I'm excited to see because we have not seen that on a consistent basis in a long time. But The Eagles' pass defense in Boston College, I caught myself thinking in Philadelphia there because you usually don't refer to them as the Eagles, is conceding only an average of 210 passing yards, good for about 43rd in the FBS. So they're in that, they're a little better than the average team when it comes to pass defense. Once again, I'll throw out there, folks might say, well, look at who they've played, Bryce. And I tell you once again, I don't care, because if you're going to use that standard, you got to use the standard the other way. You can't downgrade an opposing team just because you wear one team's colors. You have to understand that this is football and that this is one of those things that anything can happen in this football game, and you take certain things, put them together, and now we're going to see what's going on. So Georgia Tech relying on that passing offense, I do think they've got to get the rushing game going. It's something that hasn't really been consistent. Once again, check that in the notepad. It hasn't really been super consistent to be able to do certain things and offset what Haynes King wants to do. They've been able to be, I would say, respectable. But if Georgia Tech can come out of this game and they can establish the run against a team that is not really good at playing against the run, it's going to open up things for Haynes King. And I think we're seeing that Haynes King is a really good decision maker with the football. I am excited to see what he can do after a bye week. You get through the first 6 games of the season, it's probably been a blur for him. You get to calm things down a little bit. You get to get back to the basics, both on the offense and the defensive side of the football. That's going to be huge in this football game. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I want to be able to watch this game, watch it comfortably, and take away the offense did this, the defense stepped up. Now, it gets to my keys here, and we're going to roll through these. Ralph's just joined the show. He's going to, Ralph, I started some questions. I think there's about 13 of them we'll get to after I get done with this right here. That being said, we're going to, the rest of the show, we're going to do keys. We'll get to your questions, and then I'll end the show with my final thoughts and my predictions on this football game. And Ralph, make sure to double check me. I believe this point spread is still at 4.5. I believe that it is in favor of Georgia Tech. The biggest key for me, I told you when we started this show that you need to put down on a notepad, if you're taking notes at home, there will be a test. If you're taking notes at home, what is the word that I told you? I told you consistency. It's 2 teams that have not been super consistent. Now, Boston College, according to their staff and according to the folks up there in the New England area, are really starting to feel like they're getting to a point where they're being consistent and they're comfortable in what they do. So I think that it's going to be something that is really interesting to monitor, because the team that is the most consistent, not necessarily the most explosive, not necessarily making the biggest plays, not necessarily even maybe making the biggest momentum shifting plays, I think the team that is most consistent is going to win this football game. So I really, really want to see Georgia Tech come out and be good on offense. I would. This is what I would rather see. I would rather see this team put together good offensive drives over the course of 60 minutes rather than put together 3 great drives and then just not do anything the rest of the game. That's what I would see. That's what I want to see. Then defensively, the tackling has to continue to improve. Yes, there were obviously some noticeable differences in the way this group played against Miami, but now that Kevin Scherer has had a full week to be able to do some things, Brent Key is going to sit in the media, and he's going to do what he does with the media, which is completely. And I'm just going to stop right there because I don't want to get in trouble with what I would say to that. But he's going to sit in these press conferences and joke around and do these certain things that he's going to do. But in all seriousness, Kevin Scherer has had now essentially, this is week 3 of him being able to kind of do what he needs to do and implement. We need to see some type of changes, whether it's, personnel, whether it is a schematic thing, because you don't have time to sit back and do that. And that's something Key talked about. This defense cannot play reactive against that. So it goes into the consistency, but you also, the second part of this is you have to be aggressive. You have to take it to them. Appreciate that, Ralph. You have to take it over for them. You cannot come into this game on your heels waiting for things to happen. It's something that Brent Key talked about when he first took over and they got that first win up at Pitt. And it's the same thing nearly a year later. You cannot come into this football game and just be reactive and wait for things to come to you, because this is an offense that will prey upon you being reactive and you being passive. This defense has to take the initiative. They've got to dial some stuff up. It's something I called for in the Wake Forest game. It's something that I will call for here once again. This is a must-win football game for Georgia Tech if you want to get to bowl eligibility. Yes, people might say, "Yeah, we're UNC's dad and all this stuff." I don't really care. UNC looks really, really good. This is what I will tell you. How about you take the easier game and you go ahead and take care of business, which is what good teams do against teams like this. Is Boston College a bad football team? No, I don't think so. I think that they're nearly about even, and Vegas would say that as well. They're about even. Ralph, correct me if I'm wrong here. 4.5-point spread, you get 3 points at home. So really what they're thinking here is that Boston or Georgia Tech is probably a 1.5-point favorite against us. This is about as close in the ACC schedule I think that you're going to see be a coin flip game for Georgia Tech. They're going to be underdogs to a lot of teams, the Clemsons and obviously the North Carolinas. Virginia, they'll probably be a favorite. Syracuse could be another coin flip game. But I think this is a game where you have two teams that have been inconsistent. Boston College feels like they're trending in the right direction. Can Georgia Tech answer the call after that bye week? That's going to be the big thing for me that I've got to see in this game. So consistency is going to be a key. And that second point, if you're taking notes at home, you should be, because we want you to be educated in what we're doing here. We don't want you to be ignorant on the social media platforms spewing nonsense. We want you to be educated. You have to be aggressive. This defense, we have seen when they play passive, it can get ugly very, very quickly. I am not talking about playing like your hair is on fire and playing aggressive yet undisciplined. They have to find and they have to marry the two concepts together of playing aggressive and playing disciplined. When they do that, this defense can be really, really good, as can any defense. There's 133 FBS programs, I believe, in the country. Every single one of those teams is trying to find that combination. It kind of feels like in this landscape of college football, the defense that can get there quicker in the middle of a game is going to win a football game. When you can marry those two things together, you're playing fast, you're playing aggressive. When you put those things together and you're playing disciplined, solid, assignment sound football, I think you can win a football game. And I think more often than not, it really won't matter what your offense does, especially in the case of Georgia Tech over the past couple of weeks. You have a great opportunity and a great chance to be able to do that. So, and come out on top. I wanted to add this in there too. You can play all of these different things, but the scheme matters too. And this is my third and final key here. Contact's messing up. Right contact, man. Not even going to ask them, Ralph, to be a sponsor of the show. I was going to hit them up, but no, we're not doing that. Right contact just not working. Words are hard. Contact's not fun. Brent Key talked about this, and he mentioned the effort. He mentioned a lot of these different things, but what he also talked about was getting back to the basics. A lot of times, and we're seeing this with a lot of teams around the country, when you start to overload schematics, overload information, overload assignments, checks, audibles, or any of those different things, when you overload that into a defense, especially one that is probably not super amazing to begin with, appreciate you, Dr. Bob. Glasses, maybe we'll put them on that Sunday night. When you start to do that for the defense, it can almost hinder you. Yes, the things look good on paper. Yes, some of the schematics that you're putting together can be exciting to run. And if you hit on them, it's really hard to combat as an offense. But from what we understand and what we can take away from Brent Key's press conference and saying they're starting to simplify things. I know he made the joke about the 3-3-5, whatever, 3-3-6, or what he was joking about. This being said, if they can come in and they've simplified things, what it does for a player is, especially a lot of these guys who play very well with instincts, what it does is it allows you to shut the brain off and go make plays. Shut the brain off and go make plays. It doesn't mean that you have dumb football players in the field. It means you allow these guys who have great football instincts because they're all playing Division I, Power 5 college football. They know their one assignment. This is their job. You have guys doing their jobs. You can play faster. You can react quicker. You can not only just react quicker, but you can also attack quicker when you know what your job is and you know that in order to succeed as a group of 11, I have to fill that gap. I have to get that guy. I have to take the quarterback. I have to take the running back. And that is my job. When all 11 guys are in sync like that, if Georgia Tech has truly simplified defensively what they want to do, and they play, and I say this often, gap sound, assignment sound football. And a lot of people might think, well, yeah, of course. When all 11 guys on the defensive side of the football are playing in cohesion and they know what their job does, nobody tries to freelance. Nobody tries to go and do their own thing and be the hero. If this defense can do that on Saturday, they can win this game and they can win it handily. There is a path to that. There's a path for them to winning this game handily. It's going to be interesting to watch. I don't know if it's going to happen. There's a lot of ifs. There's a lot of question marks that we won't know truly until we get about through the first quarter of this football game. That being said, let's rock and roll to some questions here. I know Ralph's got them started. Appreciate you joining in for the show. If you're just joining us, make sure you go back and watch, like the video, subscribe, presenting sponsor section 103. Fantastic stuff. Ralph, let's roll down this list of comments. Make sure to get yours in. Brad, appreciate you tuning in. First off, Brad had some tickets that he was selling this weekend. If you don't have tickets, make sure to hit up my guy, Brad. Fantastic seats, a great, friend of the show, and supports what we do. We support him as well. So, Brad, if you haven't sold your tickets yet, make sure to put in the comments. I'm sure someone would love to get some 2 tickets. I think it's 2 tickets and great seats for this weekend's game. He goes, Bryce, with the decommitment of the 2 defensive linemen recently, why do you think Tech has an issue consistently getting big-time defensive linemen into the program? Very, very good question. We're going to touch on some recruiting stuff, Brad, as we kind of flesh out our programming, especially the back half of the season, really looking at that Tuesday, that mailbag episode that I think we're going to, hit on some stuff here. I think, and I want to correct, C.J. Jackson was kind of an outside linebacker, a tweener guy, and committed to LSU. I think that it's a situation of finding guys, because size is going to be a big advantage and something that they have got to increase, and they have got to be able to play well. But the problem is that Georgia Tech is in a spot, and this is just personal opinion. Georgia Tech's in a spot recruiting wise where you've got to hit early on some guys. You got to build the relationships, because if they continue to trend in the right direction, the better schools, the better programs, I should say, are going to be able to poach them. So it does leave kind of a bottom barrel. Now, look, I think they have some really good guys up front. Daquan Downs, they've got Zeke Biggers, they've got Horace Lockett. They've been able to hit on a couple of guys, and I like the progress they've made in that category, Brad. But I do think that when you talk about getting big-time defensive linemen in the program, look, every team has to build the trenches, and more often than not, there are very far and few in between elite defensive linemen, and Tech is just not in a situation to really be able to go after those guys. They're going to have to take guys they develop into that until they get a Horace Lockett, that maybe he turns into a 3rd-round draft pick. And now you have kind of a data point. You go and you show a kid, hey, we took this kid and we made him this, and now you could be the next one. And you start to kind of build that resume, and you build what's the word I'm trying to think of here? You build a notion that, hey, we're a place you can go and you can develop defensive linemen. Let's move on to the next one here. Keep it rolling through the questions. Beauty of the Beard Furniture Flips. Josie, can we change the name? I mean, what are we doing? We need the defense to be more aggressive, but is dangerous with running quarterback. And that's what I hit on earlier. I know you put this in earlier. You have to be, defensive-wise, you have to be aggressive and have discipline. We talked a lot about that. Keep it rolling. With the next one here, Louis. We should do Boston College what we should have done to Bowling Green. Wouldn't that be nice? It would be nice to do that. It'd be nice to go in there and dominate an opponent for sure. Would love to see that. Keep rolling on to the next comments here. Kevin Pender, does Moala come out as a leader and perform? Interested to see. Kevin, I was on the camp that Moala needed to show out. I needed to see someone, whether he needed to play or not, somebody had to step up in that linebacker room. We had talked about that on the show. That being said, have they done that? Have they taken Has he taken the next step? Did he show leadership during the bye week? If he has, let's rock and roll with number 13 in the middle and see what happens. So he had obviously a good game against Miami, but now you got to come out and you can't just be a one-game hero. Georgia Tech needs established guys. They need consistency. That's probably the word of the season: consistency. Keep rolling with the next comment here. I talked about the Miami game was a character game for the program. This is a pivot game. Do we continue to muddle around as a program, or do we start to mature? Dr. Bob is, I mean, seriously one of the best viewers and listeners that we have. I mean, it's not even close. Keep rolling through the comments. I do agree with you, Dr. Bob. Green 74 predict GT goes up by 20 points in the first half and scores 0 in the second half. Green would love to hear your final score prediction. As a matter of fact, if you're watching, and I know you are, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Completely free for you to do. And also, what should you be doing? Give me your final score predictions in the comments. We'll read those before we get into mine. Keep rolling through the comments right here. We go back to Louis. How big of an impact will having Lane back be? I think it's huge. I mean, Chase Lane was a favorite target the first couple of games with obviously what Haynes King wanted to do, the familiarity there, the chemistry those two had. Now that he's built it with other guys, it might take a couple series drives maybe to kind of get into the flow of things for him, but it's huge. I mean, it's so big. I think that it really unlocks what this offense can and will be able to do. I would like to see what they could do there. Keep rocking here as we go. In all seriousness, if Georgia comes out flat to lose this game coming off a bye week, they are in trouble for the remainder of the season, and major changes need to be made. Green, let me know what changes you think would need to be made. I do think it's serious. Like, this is something I want to say. If they lose this game, we're not going to get on the show. We're not going to call for someone's job. We're not going to give in to the folks that think that, we wanted Jamie Chadwell from the beginning and we wanted so-and-so. We didn't want Brent Key. I don't really care. It didn't really bother me. I said what I thought would be the best move. They went elsewhere, and that's why I don't work in the athletic administration world. It's an opinion, and people are allowed to have it. That being said, it'll tell us a lot. Like Dr. Bob said, has this team matured? They've had 2 weeks. You come out flat. You come out like you did against Virginia last year. That's going to be a problem. Major problem. Major problem for me. It will be. It will give me, some concerns about the message getting through or the message itself. Be very interesting. Green, you should never, and I mean never, lose to a team like BC coming off a bye week. Once again, Green, appreciate you tuning in. I think this is one of the first shows you really commented on, and I believe so, live that is. Would love to know, why. Like, the notion, this is something too that I struggle with understanding, and I'm cool with having a debate about it. Why is there a sense of entitlement that you should just beat Boston College? Like, what is the proof that you should go in there and beat Boston College? That's the type of thing that if this team carries the same mentality, they're going to get beat. That's just something I sit with. I just don't think this team has earned the right. I don't think Brent Key would agree either. And really no one should agree with this notion that this team has earned the right to say you should never lose to this team at any point in the season, because you have not consistently won in 5 years. Yeah, well, Bryce, it's a new regime. It's a new head coach. He really loves the program. I get all those things, and I'm not arguing that he doesn't. I'm not arguing with you that it's not true. What I'm going to sit on here and say is, until they do it, maybe that's just the camp I sit in, and maybe other folks, there's a difference between being a fan that gets to sit here and say, I this is what should happen, this should happen, and that's fine. But don't call other people not fans or not real fans when they say, got to prove it. Like, where's the proof of it? We're just asking for the evidence. That's all we're asking for. I think that's where I sit with it. That's where I sit with it. So, appreciate the comment and continue to tune in. I love the banter back and forth. Keep rolling with a couple more comments here as we get through this. Then Ralph will go through all of those final scores as well. Matt, is this game going to set the tone for what we should expect of Kevin Sherrill? We need to wait a few more games. This is a really interesting question. And while I don't think the future of Kevin Sherrill being the defensive coordinator should ride on this one game, what I do think is you should be able to have a pretty good gauge of how this team responds and the coaching after 3 weeks with a bye week in between. like we've said, there should just be absolutely no excuse for coming out looking unprepared. That would be disappointing. So I don't know if it's. I guess, and I'm not saying that you're saying this notion. I would disagree with the notion that Kevin Shears should be coaching for his job. After this, I mean, yes, everyone there should be a standard that people are held to, but I think that this is a game that should be kind of set the tone for the back half of the season because coming off a bye week, you should be able to do those things. You should. This is an opportunity to set that tone. It's gonna be very interesting. Let's go. Rocking on RPOP 98. We came out flat last year against UVA after bye week after big win against Duke. Surely Key won't allow that to happen again. And I will say this too. It's sometimes not all on the coaches. That's why I say it's either going to be the message itself or how they're receiving or not receiving the message. Keep rolling through here through the comments as well. King's continued development in the offense will be key. Yeah, I agree, Dr. Bob. Ralph, we'll just keep rolling through these, get to those. Let's get through the comments and come back and do the scores before we do this. Kevin, the biggest thing is this team not being comfortable just because it's a home game. You need to stop that narrative. Play with a chip on your shoulder, defend home field. Yeah, I mean, that's a question that Key was asked this week of what can you do differently? And he answered the question about as well as you could. Like, there's no magic potion. Like, what are you supposed to do to make these kids feel different? No, you just need to win football games at home. And I do believe that there is a sense of pride because that goes into being a better crowd. It goes into being a better atmosphere. You got to win football games at home. And we've talked about on our live college football shows. If you've never tuned in, I encourage you every single Monday and Wednesday night. We talk all aspects of college football. It's a really good time. We predict, we recap games, we talk different storylines. That being said, home field advantage should mean something, and it won't if you don't ever win there. So it'll be interesting to see. Keep rolling with a couple more of these comments. Dr. Bob, another big unanswered question: can the home crowd make a difference? Wow. I'm telling you, Dr. Bob does not have the script, but man, he is on fire. We think alike. Once again, the entity that is Dr. Bob. Keep rolling through. We got a couple more, I believe. It says 7. I'd be curious for this current students in chat to know if the school is doing anything special to try to increase turnout. Great question. And I think I saw somebody say that maybe it's a professor that's of Georgia Tech that's in here, say that, this is something where they want to see or they're giving out extra credit or something like that. I don't remember, but that'd be a good point to make. Keep rolling through. Then we got 6 more. Yeah, there we go, Kevin. I'm about to offer extra credit to students who go. That would be, hey, look, I'd take it. That's for sure. From what I've seen, Buster is in over his head and he needs to go. That's another interesting. I mean, it's an interesting point. I don't think getting rid of Buster Faulkner would be something that, I don't know. I don't think it should be something that. I don't think he's not going to be a one and done. Like the in over his head. I mean, there's some growing pains, but I wouldn't say that he looks like a deer in headlights. Keep rolling here with what we've got going on. Share showed immediate improvement in the Miami game. Curious to see if that continues. Yeah, what can you build upon it? We've talked about it. A couple more comments, and then we're going to get to your final score predictions. Boston College is a must-win game for the program, not just for bowl eligibility. Yeah, Dr. Bob, you never want to put too much on one game. But this might be a litmus test game. It might be a benchmark game. Yeah, I think it could be. I think it could be a benchmark game for year one under Brent Key. Because up until this point, you're 3-3, which a lot of people thought you could be. But you've faced some really good teams, and then you've played not some so great teams. And you really learn about your team, I think, in a game like this where it's pretty evenly matched. And so now you get to see, a team that's often considered. I mean, look, preseason. This is not my take. This is the national perspective. 2 teams that were predicted to be in the bottom half of the ACC. Well, now you get to kind of learn that a lot of people thought that were pretty comparable. Now you get to see what you're going to be able to do. So I think that's going to be something very interesting to keep an eye on as well. A couple more comments, and we got 2 more. There's no entitlement, Dr. Bob says, after the Bowling Green game. If I were a kid, I'd have newspaper clippings of the Bowling Green game throughout the locker room for the rest of the season. Dr. Bob, that's what you hope the sentiment is. That's what you hope the sentiment is. Keep rolling with a couple more as well. Like, comment, subscribe. That was the final comment. Now, I see a couple of scores. We don't have to put the scores up. We'll just see a lot of the scores. We've got 38-24, 27-20, Tech by 21, 35-20. We've got a lot of different things. Let's go to final thoughts and predictions here. Spread's 4.5. Ralph has let me know that the over-under is 58. I've had this one in my head for a while, pretty much since Monday, and I'm kind of fixated on it. And this is where I go with this. I think that, like I've said, these two teams are fairly even. These two teams have been fairly inconsistent. These two teams will have shown the propensity to be really solid at times, and other times look not very good at all. Boston College is hoping that the game against Louisville was more of an anomaly than who they are, and I would say that it probably is. The same thing for Georgia Tech. I don't think Georgia Tech is as bad as we saw against Bowling Green. I think they're somewhere in the middle of all these games. That being said, Ralph says 57.5 is that over-under. I'm taking the over in this game, but I'm taking Boston College plus 4.5. But I'm taking Tech to win. Final score prediction on this one for me is 31-27. Georgia Tech wins this one. I think that it's going to be something very interesting to watch. I think it's going to be a really, really good football game. And correct me, I'm not a mathematician. Just talk about sports. 31 plus 27 is 58, I believe. So that would be the over at 57.5. But I think Boston College covers. I think that this is going to be a pretty good football game. Like the casual people that may think, oh, I'm not watching that game. Yeah, that's fine. But I think that, if you're just a college football fan and you're an ACC fan or a fan of both these teams, I think this has the chance to be a solid football game. I'm going 31-27. Georgia Tech wins this. I think they can do enough offensively. Maybe the defense makes a big stop late in the game. This needs to be a game, though, if they can win this one, that can build confidence heading into the coming weeks. And obviously, Jonesy, you're right. Brookstone education completely paying off there. I'm glad parents' money didn't go to complete waste. Going 31-27. That's where I'm rolling. That's where I'm rolling and rocking. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. A lot of different things could happen in this football game. I'm taking the over. I'm taking Boston College plus 4.5, but I'm taking Georgia Tech to win the football game 31-27 to move to 4-3 and needing just 2 more wins. 2 more wins. Hey, there's a lot of bowl projections out there. Georgia Tech's not in every single one of them, but we're keeping a close eye on them. And, man, the Jackets get somewhere that's, it's manageable. Even if it's not, we'll see. I don't know. We're going to figure it out. But, man, we're going to make plans to be at the bowl game. That's for sure. Ralph Leary in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in on another fantastic show. We appreciate you. We love you. It's been a ton of fun talking Georgia Tech, as it is every single week. I can see the Wi-Fi is not getting too great there. We're going to end it right here. Final thoughts prediction, 31-27. We pick Georgia Tech to be winners. We'll catch you again on Sunday night as we recap this game starting at sharp 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Here, Sword Talk, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.